About to be locked inside the Stingray show, and coming up on this edition, we have a blast of a show for you as we are going to dive into the Arkansas and Tennessee matchup that is tomorrow evening in Fayetteville. The Right Reverend Houston Nutt will join us on the other side of the open to talk about his career at Arkansas and the Arkansas side of this matchup. And then Ryan Silva of ballreport.com will join us later on to talk about the Tennessee side. Guys, we've got a lot to cover, and especially with Houston Nutt. So let's get the Stingray showing. Let's get the Stingray show going on this Friday evening, if I can talk correctly.
Reminder, those of you on Tide 100.9, look out. You're about to feel the buzz of Stingray.
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
I'm Heath Hopkins. I'm here in DeSoto County, Mississippi, right outside of Memphis, Tennessee.
You know, Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you feel that responsibility to pay it forward and give some kid a chance coming up in the ranks, kind of like Tony did for you?
Why do you think I'm talking to Stingray tonight?
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
No, I mean, look, no.
Hey, Stingray, here's the deal. When you get involved with Texas, it's like getting married to a stripper. and let me explain this. It looks good. It's kind of sexy on the surface. Yeah. But then you get the baggage, you get the drama, you get all that eventually comes with it. And that's what you get with Texas, and that's what the Big 12 learned.
And Heath, any thoughts on our show moving forward?
Hey, to everyone in Tuscaloosa listening here on Tide 100.9, with the Stingray show, if you don't like it, you better learn to love it, because it's the best show going today, baby. Woo!
Hope all is well with you on this Friday evening. And now we are about to get to another special guest this week, as we are about to bring on the former head coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks and the Ole Miss Rebels. Ladies and gentlemen, the legendary head coach in the SEC himself, and his press conferences were electric. Ladies and gentlemen, please help us welcome back to the Stingray show, Mr. Coach Houston Nutt. Coach, how is retirement doing for you, sir?
Going good, Stephen. Yes, going really good, and nothing like spending some time with two grandsons and then getting to watch a lot of football on Saturdays. Nothing like it.
Yes.
Coach, we'll go with that right there. What team have you enjoyed watching this season? What's one team that's caught your eye and they're just fun to watch for you?
You know, of course, the Alabama-Georgia game the other night was absolutely phenomenal. What a great game. But, you know, the team that's been exciting to watch for me is this Tennessee group. Tennessee group is really playing very, very well, and their defense plays hard. And so as this game it goes on, boy, I'm really curious to see. I hadn't seen too much of Texas, but I'm hearing great things. And so I'm excited to see how this, especially with the 12-team playoff now this year, I'm excited about this.
So, Coach Nutt, I do want to ask you, because when we had you on the first time, which was about 2 years ago, I asked you about this story, but it's been a while. If you would, please tell us the story again about the time that you were at Arkansas as the head coach. You guys beat your arch rival Texas. You did the horns down and caught a lot of flack for it, please, sir.
You know, Stephen, I grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Yeah.
And when Texas came to town, it was a huge deal in the old Southwest Conference days. And so if you look at the record of Texas, it's overwhelmingly in Texas' favor. It's like 150 to 14. They've won 150 times compared to Arkansas's 14. So Texas was the big giant back in the days of Darrell Roll, Frank Broyles. And so I was the oldest of four boys, and so we went to the Little Rock games. We had two stadiums in Arkansas. We didn't go to Fayetteville. We went to Little Rock games, and I learned at a very early age that I said, Dad, what are they doing? They're doing this. What are they doing? Texas is coming to town, son, and it's hook 'em horns down. I said, really? So I learned that at an early age. So to fast forward to your question, Stephen. So it's year 2000. We had a really good year in 99, and we're in the Southeast Conference. And who do we play? We play Texas. And man, I was excited and nervous, anxious all week. Darryl Royal, Frank Royals, the honorary captains. And man, it's just a sea of red in that old Cotton Bowl, half red, half orange. It was packed. Arkansas hadn't won a bowl game in 15 years. We beat the mighty Texas. And I couldn't help it. The fans of Texas were gone, the Cotton Bowl, but our fans were there living it up. And I looked up to the sea of red, and everybody was doing this, and I couldn't help but answer. But what was bad was that was a front page picture the very next day. And then a few years after that, Mac Brown and I went to Baghdad together to lift up the troops.
Right.
And man, that was a tough 9-hour plane ride, brother, because Mac was saying, man, I disappointed in you, Coach. I said, what do you mean? Boy, you did the hook 'em horns sign down, man. And I get it when players do it, but not Coach. I said, Coach, you're right. And I tried to explain to him that, man, I was in the heat of the moment, and I grew up, y'all were the big bad Texas and the Giants and championships, and man, our fans love beating Texas, and I got caught up in the moment. He said, well, all right, remember you got to come to Austin. Well, we had to go back to Austin. I don't know if y'all remember. We went back to Austin, Texas, play with Matt Jones. We beat them in Austin, and my first question in the media was after the game was, Coach, you didn't do hook 'em horn sign down. I said, no, I promised Mac Brown I wasn't going to do it. Now, some of your players did. I said, yes, sir. Yes, I can't control that. They did that, but I promised Mac Brown I wasn't going to do it anymore. So Mac Brown and I are good friends now, right. But that was a tough time, Stephen, to do the hook 'em horn sign that, because Texas people don't like that.
Right.
Coach, I remember I was a young media member when that 2000 game happened, and I loved your answer in the post-game press conference when they asked you about the horns down, and you replied something like, I don't think I'm the first guy that's ever done that. I died laughing when you replied that. And I was like, he's right. He's not the first person to ever do it. Yeah. Get over yourself, Texas. And I'll say this, Coach. I had a roommate in college. His father played football at Oklahoma. And he used to make the joke about the state fair and the Red River rivalry. And he said, man, it wasn't until my junior year that I found out that Texas was the Longhorns. We always thought they were the unicorns and how we used to salute them.
That's awesome.
So, but Coach, I want to get your take on this because I got a feeling you probably laughed as well, like the rest of the SEC. But Texas, when they asked, will horns down be a penalty? Because it is here in the Big 12, and it should be in the SEC. And the SEC is like, you better toughen up, Buttercup, because that's not going to be a penalty, and get used to it. Right. What was your thought when you heard that?
just what you said. I mean, come on, we got more things to worry about now. And the thing about the SEC, there's so much passion. Every school has passion for their school, and right. From the tailgating to the pageantry, that's what makes it a special deal, man. And so you gotta kind of put your feelings to the side a little bit. Everybody loves their school, and I get it, but come on, those are those are fun times. And again, I probably shouldn't have done that back in the day, but I learned a lesson right there. But again, you get caught up in your school and all the memories you had as a little boy, and when you win a big game like that, man, it's so big, So I don't really worry about and think about too many of those things when they start talking about that thing, because it's just this is too great a game.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So, Coach Nutt, we were talking about your school, the Arkansas Razorbacks. If you would go ahead and give us your vibe on the Arkansas program this season, please.
Yes. I think Coach Pittman, if you look at it, his team's gotten better. They're better at the offensive line. They've been better at defense, has really been playing well. But what's the problem is when you still lose those close games. Coach Pittman's lost some close games, man. He's right there. I was at the Oklahoma State game, you're 21-3, 21-10 lead. I mean, you're rolling. And then the second half, you find a way to make some critical errors, with a interception for a touchdown, a fumbled punt, and a penalty at the wrong time, a missed field goal. All these little things, it adds up to big things. And so you're right there. And so I know the fans, they get frustrated. Just like the A&M game the other day, you're right there. You start off 7-0. Taylon Green throws a beautiful ball, 75-yard strike. But you've got to find a way to finish those games. And I think the running game, if you could get 22, I really like their back. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the Oklahoma State game, could have easily been won. And to me, the running game will take the pressure off the quarterback. So to answer your question, Stephen, they're right there. There's still a lot of football left. There's some frustration because you're losing some games. You're just so close, and it's just a few mistakes here or there. And as y'all know, I know it's old cliche, but it's a fine line between winning and losing. And it's so true. And it's just the truth. And so you got to find ways to it's just the little things. Hey, look, on offense, we know the snap count. That means we know when the ball is going to be snapped. So let's don't have an illegal procedure. Defense, ball's ready. We're ready. Let's don't jump off sides. It's just those little things like that are so important. And I think Coach Pittman's just right there and just got to find a way to finish.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Coach, let's talk about kind of the nasty things that happen to coaches. And you've been at Arkansas. You know what the hot seat's like at Arkansas. You know the political stuff that goes on. But us, the casual fan and media members, we don't completely know what goes on with all of that and the pressures that you have to deal with. Sam Pittman, like you said, a lot of close games, has been on the short side of it. When folks start talking and it starts building, and we'll just use Arkansas as the example, what's it like there in Fayetteville, and how hard is it to turn that thing around? Because you did turn it around a couple of times, but how hard is it to get that thing turned around? And what are you dealing with? Is it mostly boosters? Is it folks in the athletic department? Is it the school president? Is it one big money booster? What is it, Coach?
Well, that's a great question, and I lived it. And I think it's this, and I know it's this. The one thing that is so important for a coach is it's you got to control what you can control. And to me, it's about your team. That's your family. The ones that have it the toughest job is the coaches' wives. They're the one that has to go to the grocery store. They're the ones that has to go to the school, and they hear the little chirps. So I can get lost in a film room, and I can try to get this game plan ready, and I don't have to see a lot of people, when things aren't going right. But here's the deal. This deal, when I first started coaching, when I was a GA for Jimmy Johnson or Lou Holtz, there was probably a 5-year window where you had 5 years to get it done.
Yeah.
Recruiting, set your program, your culture, your DNA, blueprint, all that. Nowadays, it's sped up. It could be 3 years. It could be 2 years. That window is tighter. Mm-hmm. And so the ones that bark are the ones, there may not be that many, but they're very, very loud. And let's just take Auburn, for example, right now. You lost a couple of games right there, and you've been right there. You were ahead of Oklahoma. And, boy, fans, I mean, the message boards and the blogs and your donors who are giving money, they get loud now. And so the pressure is going to be there. And so what you can control? Shut that meeting room door and say, hey, fellas, right now things aren't going real good. Nobody loves you but your mama and me. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to roll up our sleeves right here, and we're going to shock the world. And that's the mindset you got to have, because the noise is going to get louder as those losses pile up. It's just the way it is. Every single year, there's going to be probably a coach that's going to get let go in the SEC. Maybe 2, maybe 3. There's been years where there's been 4. So it's not easy, to handle that noise, but you got to stay strong and stick with your beliefs, and most of all, get with your players and full steam ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So, Coach Nutt, I do want to ask you, because Arkansas has a huge game this weekend against Josh Heupel in Tennessee. When you were the coach at Arkansas, you guys had 2 games in back-to-back seasons. huge matchups and huge wins for you the second year against Tennessee. Talk about both of those games. First off, the Clint Stoerner fumble, and then the next year, please.
98, we're rocking. We're 8-0. We're going to Rocky Top. I mean, it's the Coliseum. Y'all know how it is up there. If you go back to the Peyton Manning days and all those days, I mean, that place is, I mean, what an atmosphere.
Yeah.
And so we were ready, though. Our 98 squad, we went up there and we jumped off. It's a rainy night. And we had 100,000 quiet, guys.
Right.
And we really played so good for about 58 minutes. And there's this play that is really it's so different. It's so unique. Our right guard got pushed back a little bit and tripped up our quarterback, and Clint used the ball to kind of try to balance himself. But the field was wet and the ball slipped out. And we fumbled, man. And that was a tough deal because they went on and scored. And remember, that Tennessee team goes on and wins the national title.
Yep.
They win it. And we're so close. We're right there. And I'm thinking after that game, we're going to see them back in the championship game. And what I loved about our team that had gone, remember, the previous years, they were 4-7 and 4-7. Brandon Burlsworth, so much care, says, no, it's my fault. Anthony Lucas says, no, I dropped the ball. Joe Dean Davenport, a tight end, said, no, I dropped the ball. I dropped a touchdown pass. And the center came and said, no, I snapped the ball over a punter's head. I've never done that since in 7th grade. I mean, so I love that we live in a world where a lot of times people say, I confess, it's your fault.
Right.
Your fault. We didn't have that. We were tight. And so fast forward now to 99, I could tell during that week, Coach Fulmer's bringing the defending champions to Fayetteville, Arkansas, T. Martin and the gang, and they had a good team, boy.
They did.
And they're coming in. But I noticed during Tuesday, Wednesday, we were a little quieter, a little bit more focused. I knew this game was circled because Clint Stoerner had to carry this burden for a year. It was unfair because it wasn't all his fault. We wouldn't be in the position without Clint. Mm-hmm. And the burden was on top of him. I could tell it. But, boy, David Barrett of Osceola intercepts the ball in the first quarter. Our fans are electric, boy. I mean, they are playing every play with us, guys. And it is a tremendous atmosphere, and it's back and forth. Boo Williams catches a touchdown pass. Well, I think we're down a few points, and, I mean, it's getting towards the end, and, I mean, Clint Stoerner throws a bullet, man. I mean, a frozen rope on a post play to Anthony Lucas, and it was beautiful. And I thought the place was gonna it was shaking, rocking. And it's funny because we got beat in Knoxville the year before 28-24. We won 28-24. Same score in that 99 year. Our fans took the goalpost down and walked it to Dixon Street downtown, and it's a historic night. You know, it was just a beautiful thing, man.
Coach, I don't want to bring up bad stuff, but does that game ever haunt you? I mean, do you have bad dreams about that game and that fumble?
I was in Mobile, Alabama, and I was just telling a quarterback group, there's two games that just wake me up in the middle of the night every so often. Mm-hmm. One of them is Tennessee. The 98 game, because I think we're good enough to go and win it. We could win the national championship. I really do. Mm-hmm. And so it's a fine line, guys. And so that wakes me up. And then the Florida game in 07, we got Darren McFadden and the gang, and we're out playing Florida Gators. We got them. Right. And Peyton Hillis gets injured. We put a freshman in on a punt return and fumbles the punt, and they recovered in the end zone, gave him a touchdown there. Those two games, it's funny. You think about those, there's so many great, we had 7 overtime wins, longest games in the world. You beat LSU, they go and win the national championship in 07. You got a lot of great games, but the ones that wake you up at night, you start punching yourself like, whoa, Tennessee 98 and 07, Florida, Arkansas.
So, Coach Nutt, let's go to the Arkansas and Tennessee matchup on Saturday night. Your thoughts, and what can Arkansas do to pull another major upset against the Rocky Top Volunteers?
Yeah. Well, I always love games like this because I love being the underdog.
Yeah.
And when nobody gives you a chance. And there's nothing like going to the meeting room. Well, experts say we shouldn't even show up. Experts say that we can't stay on the field with this Rocky Top group.
Yeah.
We're fixing to shock the world. And you start by, hey, look, let's take care of the most precious thing we have, and that's the ball. Let's don't give it away. In fact, let's take it away. Let's get us about 3 takeaways this week.
Yeah.
And put emphasis on taking the ball away 3 times. Let's take it away from them 3 times. Let's cause a fumble. Let's get an interception. Let's scoop and score. And you start thinking about things that could happen and like that. And let's don't have foolish penalties. That's selfish, man.
Yeah.
Somebody hits you underneath the pile, just tell him you'll be back in about 40 seconds, big boy. You don't have you swing back, and the guy that swings last is the guy that's going to get the penalty. And that's a selfish act to me. And so you talk about those things. You talk about those things. Hey, look, I know they're supposed to beat us. Pressure's on them. So let's go play like I know we can play.
Yeah.
And turn it loose, So to answer your question, Stephen, I would do this. I would really put some emphasis on let's take the ball away 3 times. Let's get 3 turnovers. Let's don't give up big plays. I know they're going to make some plays. Their quarterback's really good. But let's don't give up chunk plays. What I mean, explosive plays. Let's don't give up 30-yard, 40-yard, 50-yard. Let's make them go the long, hard way. And when they catch it, let's bring the hat. Yes. And so let's do that. And then offensively, I think it's important. Last week, I think Taylor Green, he threw the ball 41 times. That's too many.
Yes.
It's too many. It's too many. Let's get that down and let's get 22. Let's find a way to get 22 going. I think he's a really good back. And let's move the pile. You don't have to just dominate on the offensive line, but get some ties and let a good back push it forward and stay on track. And so I would really get some good drive starters. And what I mean by that is Taylon Green look at the first play versus A&M, guys.
Yeah.
It's when he's moving. So let's boot and waggle him, and he throws a 75-yard. It's 7-0 versus A&M. We got our foot on their throat. Let's learn how to play now with our foot on the throat. Let's finish. And so to me, keep them off balance with boots and waggle. Taylon Green can run. Get your running game going. That will help him. And to me, if you do that and you have a sound kicking game, you get to the 4th quarter and all of a sudden 3 up or 3 down, 6 up or 6 down. It's like, hey, they're feeling it a little bit. Now you got your crowd into it. You just can't let it get it away. You can't let them just get away with 14, 21, nothing. And here we go again.
Right.
So I think if you get to the 4th quarter, and that was always our goal, guys. Guys, let's get to the 4th quarter. They're going to be a little nervous. And we got the home field, and our fans will play with us. And so that's what, to me, makes this game exciting. I know what the experts say, but, hey, you don't ever know that ball. I have 2 brothers that coach college basketball. Dickie's at Missouri. Dennis is at Washita Baptist. I always tell them, guys, your ball bounces straight up and down.
Right.
Football doesn't bounce straight. It goes every which way.
Yes.
So it's a different game. So anything can happen, guys.
Coach, you mentioned Lou Holtz earlier in this interview. I love Coach Holtz. He's my favorite coach. I've loved reading his books, love everything about Coach Holtz.
Yes.
Wish I had enough talent that I could have played for him. That God didn't bless me with that. But, his time there in Arkansas ended abruptly. And I know you weren't there at the time, but what do you know about that situation of why Lou Holtz was let go just like that at Arkansas?
Actually, I was there.
Okay.
In 1983, I was a grad assistant. Diana and I just gotten married. And what had happened was Coach Broyles didn't think he was recruiting. We lost like a Keith Jackson. We lost a Mark Hudson. We lost some players in state. And Coach was going around pretty much traveling around the country. And the thing, it goes back to that first question you said early on. When you get some fans, get upset, didn't have a very good year in 83.
Mm-hmm.
We all know what a great coach Lou Holtz is. Lou Holtz is phenomenal. I mean, absolutely phenomenal. Great motivator, disciplinarian, won a national title at Notre Dame. And then I played with on the team that won the Orange Bowl. He had Dan Hampton, Ron Calcagney, Roland Sales was MVP. We beat Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl. We were underdogs. And so he taught me a lot about being an underdog. But to answer your question, it just he was there about going on his 6th year. He had rubbed some people the wrong way, lost some recruits. And it just, it kind of gets that negative vibe. And it's funny because Lou Holtz and Coach Broyles had really a good relationship after that. It's always hard when you tell somebody you're gone. But what I remember 2 or 3, 4 or 5 years later, they got back. The relationship was pretty strong.
Right.
Wow.
So, Coach, I've got 2 questions left for you. The first one is this. You obviously know the culture of Arkansas. How surprised were you in the offseason earlier this year that Arkansas was able to pull John Calipari away from Kentucky?
That's a great question. I tell you what blew my mind. My brother Dickie, who's assistant at Missouri, loves John Calipari. And the first thing he told me, he says, "Your Arkansas fans are in for a treat." I said, "What do you mean?" He is the best salesman, the best communicator. People are going to love him. He talks. He can sit down in any coffee shop, any environment, and they're going to love him.
Right.
And when you listen to my brother talk about him, I can see it. I've already had people tell me at Arkansas, love John Calipari. And I hear he is recruiting. So, he was at a place for so long. And sometimes you get at a place and sometimes you just need new streets. You need to hear from somebody else. And he did so many great things at Kentucky, everywhere he's been. But man, Arkansas is fired up about their coach, John Calipari, and he's hitting all the right buttons because everybody loves him right now. Of course, he's undefeated, but look at who he's recruited already. I understand, I hadn't really studied it, but I understand he's got some difference makers already. So I'm looking forward to watching his team.
Coach, I'm going to put you on the spot with a fun question. I don't care if you're coaching Little League. I don't care if you're coaching high school. I don't care if you're coaching the NFL or college. There's certain coaches that you enjoy beating, that you want to beat bad.
Yeah.
Who are those coaches for you? Who did you enjoy beating, or you just really look back like, I stuck it to him today? Who are some of those guys, Coach?
I always had such respect for all the SEC coaches.
Yeah.
I always thought they were phenomenal. I really do. I had a really a respect for them. But there's nothing like when you go to LSU. LSU is a place, if you look at the environment is so electric. And it's like that a lot of places. But for some reason, the LSU game, I always wanted to beat Les Miles. And, Les Miles, we beat them in 3 overtimes in 07, and then they go on and win the national title.
Yeah.
So he was fun to beat. Now, Nick Saban, the GOAT, only got him twice, but, man, he was at LSU that one time. And Matt Jones to Corey Birmingham, we got him there at the end of the game. You have such respect for a guy that has done so many great things. I've never seen a guy that – the thing about Nick Saban is he puts his foot back on the pedal faster than anybody I've ever seen. What I mean by that is after he had won a championship, guys, most people would say, okay, we won an SEC championship, we won a national championship, let's take a deep breath. And he wasn't like that. He was right back on the road. And so when you beat a guy like that, man, it's just fulfilling, So you always want to be the other one that I like to beat when you say stick it to him. Dan Mullen was one that you love to beat. Yeah. And he coached Tim Tebow and he was a guy that you love at the end of the game because he would stick it to you too. He would talk a little noise. So there'd be a guy like that. And we were in the swamp that day with Jevin Sneed and Dexter
Yeah.
McCluster, and we just got beat the week before by Vanderbilt, man, in a close one. And that, man, oh, yeah, you talking about sick to your stomach. And so now you're going on the road. Here we go again now, Stephen. We're underdogs.
Yeah.
And nobody says we got a chance in the swamp. But you got Urban Meyer, you got Dan Mullins, the offense coordinator. Boy, you go in there and you talking about getting the swamp quiet. That was a great feeling, guys.
Yeah.
Great feeling.
So, Coach Nutt, when you go back to this season in the SEC, in your opinion, based off the first 5 weeks of the season, who is the number one team in the SEC? Is it Alabama? Is it Texas? Or is it Tennessee?
Wow. Man, that's a tough question right now in 5 weeks. But I'll tell you what, Alabama right now, I got such respect for him because, Kalen DeBoer comes in, you're thinking, he's got a big shoes to follow. Not everybody would like to step in those shoes, but I'll tell you what, you got to give it to him, and he's doing it his way. But Nick Saban did not leave the cupboard bare. And so Milroe, to me, is at an all-time high. He's at the best. He's throwing, he's running. And that receiver, Ryan Williams, is electric, boy. Wow. What a player. So I'm going to go with Alabama right now. I'm going to go with Alabama. I know Texas is right there.
Right.
But I'm still unsure. So I'm going to go with Alabama after 5 weeks.
Okay.
And to me, it's, the Alabamas, the Texas, the Georgias, then Missouri, Kentucky. But then there's a drop off, after that. But man, this is where it's going to get exciting as we turn the corner and get into fall ball. We start getting October, November. Woo! This is going to be exciting now to see how this thing ends up and who's back in the SEC championship game. And the last thing, I miss the East-West division, guys.
Yes.
I really miss that. The one thing about when you won the West, we did it 3 times. It really elevated your players, your recruiting, and to go to Atlanta representing the West, man, that was such a great feeling, and it helped everything: your alumni, your players, your recruiting. And so this is going to be different. I get what Commissioner Sankey's doing. I get that. You got a lot of good teams. You got a lot of teams, and you're going to try to get the best too. I get it. But I tell you what, guys, I miss that East-West now.
Me too.
Yes.
Me too, Coach.
So, Coach, I do want to ask this, going back to your time at Arkansas, which game at Arkansas meant the most to you and why?
Yeah. Well, that's a hard question. I would say I'd go back to the 2000 Cotton Bowl, Texas. That was a special because it's like we talked about, Darrell Royal, Frank Broyles, the old Southwest Conference, winning that first bowl game in 15 years. That was phenomenal.
Right.
I also would say the LSU game. That was my last game I coached in Baton Rouge, and we won in 3 overtimes, and they go on and win the national title. So a lot of great memories. The longest games in the world, 2 7 overtimes versus Eli Manning at Ole Miss, and Jared Lorenz in Kentucky had a really good team. It beat both those guys in 7 overtimes. I thought that was just phenomenal. But I would probably say Texas LSU was probably the most memorable as far as happiness and the celebrated locker room, and that's what you miss, celebrated locker room.
Coach, when March Madness comes around and everyone's got their brackets and they're filling them out, they've always got that underdog, that dark horse, or Gonzaga. I think Gonzaga's going to go deep. College football playoff, if it was around when you were coaching, you would have been that guy.
Yes.
You would have been the Gonzaga. The Right Reverend is known for his upsets. No one wants to see him. Coach, tell me how you think you would have done or how you'd have talked to your team heading in to one of those college football playoff games. You might be there at the 11 or 10 or 11 seed, getting ready to play somebody, and I just have a feeling you would have whooped somebody and you would have won the next week too.
Heath, I appreciate that question. I appreciate you bringing that up. And I've been thinking about that. You think about those 12 spots. And what's amazing is just think if you're 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, or 11th seed, and they don't want to play you. You're getting healthy. You're starting to play better towards the end. You're on this roll. You got this confidence, and you tell your team, fellas, we're in the tournament. We're in the tournament, fellas. And all we got to do is win and advance, survive and advance. It's not best of 7. It's 60 minutes.
That's right.
And so you take it like that, and man, that would be exciting. And you look back at the 10 years I was at Arkansas and the 4 years at Ole Miss, the 2 of those years probably would have made it. And then look at Arkansas, there's about 4 or 5 of those years we would have made it, I think, because you win 10, you win 9, you're right there. And man, I tell you, that would be fun now. That'd be exciting because you talk about a whole new ball game. It's like a whole new season, guys. And especially I could see if you're getting healthy, you said something. There'd be some coaches that, oh my gosh, we don't want to play them. Yeah. We do not want to play them right now. That would kind of be the mindset. And so that's what's going to be fun about this first year of 12-team playoff.
Coach, what team, if you could just name one team, which one do you think would have gone far in the playoffs if you had it back then?
Well, the 98 squad, the 98 and the 07, the Darren McFadden's, Felix Jones, Peyton Hillis, Jonathan Louise, all those guys, that would have been a group. And of course, the 98 group, I think 98 or 99, but 98 was probably more complete because we had defense, offensive line. You had Burrowsworth, great receivers. Clint Stoerner was rocking and rolling. And so I think between the 98 and McFadden's group, those 2 teams, I think, would win the farthest.
Wow.
So, Coach Nutt, we have thoroughly enjoyed you joining us this morning. And if you would, you talked about it earlier that you do go to speaking engagements. Please let our listeners know how they can contact you if they are interested in having you come and speak to them.
Yeah. Well, I don't have Jimmy Sexton anymore. I just do it myself. So they just call me, Stephen. Okay. So if anybody calls you, Stephen, you can give them my number. Okay. But I just do it on my own. I do about 20 a year. I don't try to do any more than that. But we have a lot of fun, and I love staying in the South. I usually go from Florida to Bama, Georgia, Louisiana, Arkansas, Kentucky. Kind of stay in the South, but. I always love to do that and do about 20 to 22 a year.
Okay. Well,
Coach, if you ever come to Memphis anytime soon, let me know.
Yeah.
And if I need to break bread with you, brother, I'll pick up the tab.
I tell you what, there's some good spots in Memphis. I love it.
So, Coach, if you would, the floor is all yours for anything else that you would like to say in this interview.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me and appreciate what y'all do for football. And it's like used to tell our players, it's only the greatest game in the world. And so love it. It's okay to get knocked down. That's not the sin. The sin is if you stay down. So let's get back up and let's go.
Yes.
There you go. I'm ready to go, Coach.
I'm
ready to go.
All right. Coach, thank you as always. Bye-bye.
Thank y'all.
Coach.
See you, buddy.
Heath, that was phenomenal with Coach Houston Nutt. We really do want to thank him.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, if you are listening to this on the radio, go back and check the podcast. This has been one of our better shows this year. Maybe the best we've had this football season so far. Tons of great stuff. We cannot put it all in an hour. So many things will be on the podcast. You should check it out. Check it out on Spotify, and you will not be disappointed, or Apple Podcasts. And we also got the YouTube channel as well.
Heath, we are not done with the Stingray show yet. We have to get to the Tennessee side of the Arkansas matchup. On the other side of this break, Ryan Silva will join us from VolReport.com to finish up the Stingray show. Right after this, you are listening to the Stingray Show. And guys, you just missed a wonderful interview with Coach Houston Nutt. Check out the podcast for more.
Man, I feel sorry for Ron Silva. No one wants to follow Houston Nutt, man.
Hey, those Vols probably do, though.
Oh man, that's kind of like following like Ric Flair. You don't want to follow Ric Flair. You don't want to follow The Rock.
Woo! Back inside the Stingray show, and hope all is well with you and the Tennessee Volunteers, fresh off of a bye week, now travel to Fayetteville, Arkansas, as Arkansas fans like to say, up on the hill to take on the Arkansas Razorbacks Saturday evening. And this is a huge game for Sam Pittman. And it is also a big game for Josh Heupel as Tennessee continues to stay undefeated. It is a wonderful SEC rivalry over the years. And to break this game down from the Tennessee perspective, here is our good friend from volreport.com. Ladies and gentlemen, please help us welcome back to the Stingray Show, Mr. Ryan Silva. Ryan, how are things in Knoxville coming off of the bye week for Tennessee after they played and did whatever they wanted to against Oklahoma in a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, I think you can tell that a lot of people in Knoxville are ready to watch Tennessee play again. It's an exciting team to watch. It's different than some of the other Josh Heupel teams where you think back to 2022 where Tennessee obviously had a lot of success that was primarily in offense and a pretty weak defense, but the offense made up for it. Well, this year, not that the offense is weak, but the defense is elite and one of the best in the country. So it's been kind of fun to watch that shift and Josh Heupel lean into that shift like he did against Oklahoma and kind of rely on that defense down the stretch. But I think overall, Knoxville is just kind of itching to watch Tennessee football play again. But also, right after this Arkansas game, they're at home for, I think, 4 straight games, and then there's a bye week sandwiched in between. So I think Tennessee fans are also like, let's get through this Arkansas game. Tennessee stays undefeated if they take care of business, and then you have a home stretch where things are going to get ruckus in Neyland Stadium.
So, Ryan, while you guys were off, there was a monumental, historic game in Tuscaloosa between Alabama and Georgia. Alabama looked awesome in the first half, kind of sleptwalked through the second half. Georgia looked horrible in the first half, really turned it on in the second half. Based off that game in Tuscaloosa last week, how are Tennessee fans thinking about and focusing on both the Alabama and Georgia game upcoming? Because if memory serves me correctly, the Vols have Georgia on the road and Alabama at home.
Yeah, that's right. And I think from talking to Tennessee fans in Knoxville and talking to people on our forum over at volreport.com, that the general consensus for Tennessee fans might be that it shifted from you go into the season feeling pretty good about getting Alabama at home and then going on the road to Athens. You felt like that was probably a loss. And that maybe has flipped a little bit, where now there's Tennessee fans that maybe see what Carson Beck did, especially in that first half, and just him not taking care of the ball very well and really not looking like the Heisman caliber first-round pick quarterback that he was hyped up to be in the preseason, and saying, well, with Tennessee's defensive line, you feel like Tennessee's defensive line is going to get home against any offensive line in the country, and you could force them into some mistakes. And so maybe now, after you watch that game, Tennessee fans are saying, well, maybe we actually do go into Athens and win that game. And in Neyland, that's going to be a little bit tougher against Alabama. I still personally think Tennessee has a better chance to beat Alabama at home and lose to Georgia in Athens. And that's what I predicted at the beginning of the season, and I'll stick with it too, that Tennessee wins back-to-back in Neyland Stadium over the Tide, which I'm sure your listeners will be thrilled to hear. But, yeah, it definitely boosted kind of the way Tennessee fans and the way that people outside of Tuscaloosa are viewing this Alabama team, especially with how good Jalen Milroe looked. I mean, Jalen Milroe all but locked up the Heisman like 5 weeks into the season. There's a lot of season left to play, and he could lose and someone could step up, but he's pretty undebatably the number one guy in that race right now.
All right. So, Ryan, when you look at the Tennessee versus Arkansas matchup in Fayetteville, break that game down for us and where you feel like that Tennessee can expose Arkansas.
It's going to be the same answer in a lot of weeks, and it was the same one against Oklahoma, but I just don't think Arkansas's offensive line stacks up to what Tennessee's pass rush is going to be. And you heard Sam Pittman talk about how the interior of the offensive line needs to play better and that they need to give Taylor Green space to step up in the pocket and kind of extend plays and things like that. But at the same time, the tackles aren't playing that well. And the right tackle hasn't been that impressive for Arkansas either. So not only are you getting guys like James Pierce, like Joshua Josephs, Caleb Herring, Tyree West, who have had phenomenal starts to the season coming off the edge, but up the middle, you have Omari Thomas, you have Elijah Simmons, you have Omar Norman Lott, and you have all these other defensive tackles that now also are poised to wreak havoc like they did against Oklahoma. Taylor Green has not really impressed me when under pressure. I think since that first game against Pine Bluff, he's throwing just a hair over 50% accuracy on his passes, and that is not going to get it done against a defense like Tennessee. So I think that's what stands out to me. It's going to be that answer in a lot of games, but especially this one, I think that's where Tennessee could really take over once again.
All right. So, Ryan, you've covered Tennessee for 5 weeks now. Do you see any spot that Arkansas might could expose Tennessee?
I would like to see Tennessee's receivers have a better game. I still think Tennessee has the advantage in that category, but it's still something that we haven't seen Tennessee's receivers do against a high-level opponent. And I'll even throw NC State in that mix, even though they haven't looked too impressive to start this season. Tennessee goes into 12 personnel for a lot of that game, and NC State's dropping back 8 guys. So there's not a lot of space for Tennessee's receivers to do much, but you didn't see it there. You didn't really see it against Oklahoma, where especially in that second half, they just kind of sat on the ball and tried to get to the final whistle. So I'm not sure if it's an area of advantage for Arkansas, but I would like to see Tennessee's receivers get a lot of space, start to take over that game. And I would also like to see Nico kind of bump those numbers up, because he had good games against Oklahoma and NC State, but I'd like to see him have that Heisman type of performance against an SEC team this week.
Yes.
Ron, I would argue last year Squirrel White was the best receiver in the SEC, if not one of the best. He hasn't done hardly anything this year. I asked you before earlier in the season, what's going on? Is he injured? What's happening? You know, I know receivers don't put up big numbers every single game, but Squirrel hasn't put up big numbers in any game this year, and we're in October now. What's going on with Squirrel White?
Yeah, he's been really quiet, and I'm sure it's got to be pretty frustrating for him, like you said, coming off of a season where he was really good and really productive as just a sophomore. And even as a freshman, even though it was a lot in cleanup duty, he was making big plays down the field. And he was expected to maybe be the best receiver on this team. And so far, he's pretty clearly dropped down to that 4th spot. And there's a lot of season left. There's a lot of time for him to kind of make his emergence as one of the better receivers in the SEC. But you're right. He hasn't done much. He hasn't found the end zone. When Nico drops back and he needs a guy for a quick reception, it's been Brew McCoy. When he wants to make a splash play down the field, it's been Dante Thornton. When he wants to just kind of get something in the intermediate range and maybe move the chains, it's been Chris Brazzell. So it hasn't been Squirrel White, even though he's playing pretty much every snap in the slot. I still think that he'll find his footing and he'll make things work and he'll get on the same page with Nico, but it is interesting to see. So I guess I'm not hitting the panic button. I'm not concerned about what Squirrel White's final stat line this season is going to look like, but I definitely wouldn't have predicted that going into Game 5, second game of SEC play, that he'd be out of the end zone, and I'm not even sure if he's at 100 yards yet.
Is it a chemistry thing between him and Nico? Is it? I'm making things up. You feel free to laugh. Is it a jealousy thing that Nico doesn't want him to love? I made that up completely, but it just seems like him and Nico are not on the same page, or he's getting too much attention. And I don't think that's the case. I don't think the defense is paying Squirrel too much attention. And if it is, that is opening things for Dante Thornton, because he's, like you said, the big play guy, the splash play guy. But what do you think it is, if you had to guess or try to put a thumb on it or shoot in the dark? What would you think it is between Nico and Squirrel?
I don't think that he's getting extra attention. I think teams still respect his speed and how he can take the top off of defense. So he's still able to run those clear out routes and stuff and open things up for other receivers. And I don't necessarily think him and Nico aren't on the same page. I think if I had to put my thumb on anything, it might just kind of be the play calling. It might partially just be the way that these plays are set up with the reads, that Nico's first look is to other receivers and his second look might not be in that slot. And when the reads are to scroll first or scroll second, maybe he's not getting that separation. So if I had to really place it on something, I would say that the plays are designed for Dante Thornton. Well, hey, squirrel, clear that part of the field out, get that safety to move over here. We're going to hit Dante over the middle. Hey, squirrel, run that curl right here to bring that safety down. We're going to hit Brew down the field. So I think maybe he's being used a little bit more as a decoy, but at the same time, I think he kind of needs to create more separation himself.
Nico and Squirrel, is that like a superhero group, a hip hop group, or the next Disney cartoon? If you had to guess, Nico and Squirrel, what's your guess?
They've got some good names. They've got some superhero names on that team.
There you go.
They just lost a Slaughter to Arkansas in the secondary, but they have another Slaughter as last name back there in the secondary as one of the younger guys. I mean, you got a Squirrel. You've got some good names on. I mean, they could definitely stack up in one of those all American name teams. Like they've got some.
All right. So Ryan, we have done a deep dive into this game. Tennessee at Arkansas. Currently, Tennessee is a 13-point favorite. The over-under is 60. How do you see the game going for number 4 Tennessee this week, up on the hill, as Hog fans like to say, in Fayetteville?
I've seen some people call this a trap game, and I can see the argument for that. I still think Tennessee wins, and I think that line's pretty decent. I think they win by like 14 to 20 points, somewhere in that range. I think it's comfortable, though, similar to that Oklahoma game where Tennessee wins by 10 points, but in the second half, I'm not sure if there was any real threat that Tennessee was going to lose that game. I think you could see something similar against Arkansas where maybe they win by 14 points, but that second half, you're kind of sitting back in your recliner and you're not too worried about Tennessee losing. I haven't thought about that over-under, though. I haven't looked at that yet. And that's an interesting one because I could see this game starting to get a little bit high score. Like I could see Taylon Green being a headache on a 3rd and 8, and you think you have him down in the backfield and he extends a play and maybe he makes a splash play or two that Tennessee hasn't given up yet. I like under 60.5, I think you said the line was, and I like Tennessee covering, though. I think it's still a dominant defensive performance. I think Nico gets going a little bit more in SEC play and starts to look like one of the top SEC quarterbacks, and I think Tennessee goes home pretty satisfied with their performance into that home stretch.
Hey, Rod, when we were looking at Oklahoma and that game, you saw Josh Heupel run the ball more than anything. Do you think he took it easy on Oklahoma just a tad bit? And I don't see any reason why he would take it easy on Arkansas. I mean, everyone loves Sam Pittman, but I don't see him taking it easy. What were your thoughts on that Oklahoma game? And do you think he's being generous right now? Josh is being generous to SEC teams, because I don't.
I don't think that he took it lightly on Oklahoma because it's Oklahoma and the history or anything like that. I think what it was is kind of an NFL style of winning a football game where you don't care what the score looks like at the end. You just want to leave with a win in that win column. And so he kind of I think he sat back at halftime and thought, what is the only way Tennessee loses this game? It's if Nico is in danger, he gets strip sacked again, he's forced into a bad mistake and throws an interception, and you give Oklahoma field position, you give them 3 points. So to just take that out of the equation to say Tennessee's got 2 tackles that are not starters, they've got 2 tackles off the bench, how can we try to neutralize that and take that away from Oklahoma? Let's just try to run this clock. Let's try to move the ball. Let's settle for 3 when we need to kind of tick onto that score. And let's make sure that the only way that Oklahoma can win this game doesn't come to fruition. So I think it wasn't him going like, yeah, I don't want to run up this score. Because if he unleashed the offense, sure, maybe they win that game by 30 points. But at the same time, maybe some disasters come up and they lose that game. So I think to him, it was like, let's just make sure we leave Norman with the win more than anything.
I'm going to have to go put this out there. Just like Starsky and Hutch, Crockett and Tubbs, Jake and the Fat Man, Nico and Squirrel, it's a buddy cop bromance cop show. That's what it's got to be, right?
Yeah, if they can get it going, that's some T-shirts waiting to be printed.
I just want to see the video that the Vols would put out, the video department would put out. Nico and Squirrel solve another mystery.
So, Ryan, look, man, thank you as always for joining us. Enjoy your time going to Up on the Hill in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Hopefully, Tennessee will get out of there unscathed and go back home for that 4-game home stretch. And we will definitely catch up with you later on this season as the meat of the Tennessee schedule is coming up very soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I've never seen them call the Hogs up there. I've never been to Fayetteville, so I'm excited to get a little SEC tradition under my belt.
Yeah,
Awesome,
which is
dude.
greater, Rocky Top or Up on the Hill?
I would have to lean Rocky Top. They call Knoxville the Hill too. So
Okay.
a couple of hills in the SEC, and I think Tennessee fans will go to bat for their hill over Fayetteville's.
And that's why Oklahoma doesn't fit, because there is nothing out there.
All right, Ryan. Thank you, man. Enjoy Fayetteville. Catch up with you later on.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Take
All
care,
right.
Rod.
All right. So, Heath, briefly, before we go to break, I do want to mention the schedule upcoming for Tennessee. We just talked about them going to Arkansas. Then they host Florida the next weekend in Knoxville. The following weekend, they host Alabama. The following weekend, they host Kentucky. And the following weekend after that, they host the Mississippi State Bulldogs before hitting the road again to take on Georgia. So 4 straight games at home in Neyland after this Arkansas game Saturday.
Man, that's tough on season ticket holders, man. When you have like 3 games in a row, I mean, loading up the car, gassing it up, buying all the tailgate stuff, smoking the meats, whatever you're doing, charcuterie boards, whatever it is, it adds up, man. And so I don't know if you know this, Stephen. Times are a little tough out there for us Americans. So,
But I will tell you, Heath, it's better to do it when you're winning and you're the number 4 team in the country.
Yeah, anytime you're top 5 and you're winning, winning solves most, if not all, problems.
Yes.
It really does. Ask any coach, ask any Southern Baptist minister. Winning solves most problems.